I don't know if it's the internet here. Probably is. No question. Wow, it's not. When I see you coming to the door, I'll start. Oh, there it is. Okay. Tell me when you're ready. Well, it's starting. All right, we'd like to welcome everyone this evening to our Mapleton City Council meeting, Wednesday, July 7th, 2021. We'll begin by an invocation by Councilman Carlson and led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Garrett.
Our Father in heaven, as we come before thee this beautiful day, we express thanks and gratitude and appreciation for the many blessings that we have and receive, especially for the opportunity to live in this town and the community that we live in and our good neighbors and friends here. Also at this time, we pray that we may have added moisture to be able to replenish the reservoirs and the streams and the aquifers because of the drought. We also ask that the deliberation, the discussions this evening might be understandable and proper. We also pray for those in need. We're also grateful for this time as we celebrate and think about our rich heritage with the 4th of July and the Declaration of Independence and the servicemen and the great heritage that we have, also the pioneer heritage. These things that we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
The audience will please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go forward with our public forum. We have several individuals that have signed up for public forum, which means you can just come forward and speak. If you have signed up to speak and want to speak to one of the public hearing items on the agenda, which is 5, 6, 7, and 8, you're welcome to wait and give your comments then. Otherwise, you're welcome to come forward. I can see we got Nat, MJ, Sharon, Donna, and Forrest. So whatever order you'd like to, just come forward. If you'll state your name for the record.
I was just sitting back with Nat, and he asked that I come up first. My name's MJ Macias. I live off of 8th North, right behind the junior high on the south side. And I just wanted to talk about the notice of the triathlon and how frustrating it was as a resident. I moved to Mapleton from a busy city. I love Mapleton. I love the quietness of it. I'm willing to pay the taxes to keep it quiet. And I was on Friday afternoon. I was told I couldn't get to my home. I was told to wait on the side for participants of the triathlon to go by several police officers. I tried coming in from all different angles, and I couldn't get into my home until about 3 o'clock, till everything was taken down. I had a business that I am a landscape contractor. I was doing a project in the area and had a very difficult time getting my trucks in. The notification of it was I had a flyer on my front door that blew away. I had our ring that showed that it was there, and then I found notification on Facebook, and the notification that went out was really frustrating as a resident. It was more for the participants of the Triathlon who are non-residents. Been here and it was told, hey, move everything off the street. You got 24 hours. My wife even went down to the police station, asked, hey, our cars going to be ticketed? Do we really need to move them? What's going on? Because we just read it on Facebook. Was told, no, we're not going to ticket anything. No, you should be fine. 9 o'clock on Thursday night, got a knock on the door from a police officer saying, you guys need to move things off the street. So by trying to be proactive and try to find things out, and so that we weren't inconveniencing anybody at 9 o'clock, I usually go to bed at 8:30 because I'm up at about 4 o'clock in the morning with my line of work. I also had triathletes coming around on Wednesday, riding the course, which they have the right to, bikes on the road, all about it, but there were groups of, large groups of bikes that I couldn't go more than about 15 miles an hour down Main Street. 30 miles an hour is, slow enough, but it was really frustrating. In my neighborhood, everybody was taken back by the amount of notification that was given. I'm all about bringing events to our community, but if I'm told that I can't get access to my home, I need to be notified of that. That's unacceptable. And my purpose in coming here is so that if we do decide as a community to bring something like that to the area, I'm all for it. But how can we then change that so that residents that are affected by that can be notified of that? And I called Corey, and he was very, very cordial and polite and said, hey, there were some things that were short notice of notifications, and I understand we're coming out of COVID, and there's some things that are still changing on that end. And so I just would ask that as a city, that if my neighbor's changing his home or building a new home, I get notification of that. And that's building on a piece of property that's not even mine, right? But if I'm told that I can't get to my property that is mine legally, I pay my property taxes, I shouldn't be told, please wait here on the side of the road. And then the police officers that I spoke with were as frustrated as I was, telling residents, hey, sorry, and I'm asking people how to get to my home, and I'm looking at this tiny map on Facebook of how to get there, and it's not even legible in some cases. And so that's why I'm here, and I just would like, to see if the city can adopt a process and how I as a citizen can help with that. I'm not trying to say, city council, you guys have enough going on, but how can we as a resident or residents help so that if it's getting the word out there, or if there's a board or something of volunteers that we can go before, then that's great. If it's something that doesn't affect the residents or road closures and, the city can approve it, no problem, hey, great. But if it's going to affect hundreds of residents, if not thousands, I think that those residents, we should have a say in what's going on in our neighborhood on that end.
Is it Matthias?
Macias.
Macias, where do you live?
I have 134 north, or 134 east, 800 north.
Oh, 8th North, okay.
So we're the second house in from the corner, and
Okay.
so kind of the middle of the back of the soccer field on that
Got it.
end.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and another thing that appreciate all the road, paving and things going on, which is awesome. Irrigation water, that's awesome. But that was also part of the other issue was because we're doing stuff for the community, we already had enough road closures going on for us as citizens, and then to have the other, and on 8th North all the way down from 89 all the way to the high school, or all the way to the junior high, we're trying to get around, so.
Yes, I agreed. That's a tough thing, especially if the notice wasn't given with enough time and you didn't know about it, and not having access to your home, especially on Friday afternoon, you're headed home after
Yeah, it's
a
been a
work day.
long week, and
That's frustrating. Absolutely, agreed. And we'll do a better job. And it's part of the things we've been working on over the last year and a half to 2 years is getting this, the ability to communicate and receive communication back. And we've made a lot of headway, but we're still not there. But we're trying to figure that part out. So we're trying to do that to accomplish exactly what you said.
No, and I get.
I was going to say, also mentioning, obviously this was a new event that kind of a lesson learned. It was a bigger event than we possibly anticipated. And was not a co-sponsored event, so the city was not involved with it. We would just met with them and said, yeah, you can utilize, the areas they were looking at. We had not intended on closing that road until that last couple days. Once we started seeing, oh, wait a sec, this event, there's some safety concerns that we become worried about, and so that's why it was a last-minute change on the aspect of the road being closed. Prior to that, our plan was to keep the road open, and that they would utilize, the event that they were doing. But that's again some lesson learned on that as well.
Yeah. No,
How much time did we have when we decided we were going to have it to when it actually
They
happened?
probably reached out to us about 2 months
Or was it? I didn't
before,
think it was
but we
even 2
didn't.
months.
There wasn't a lot of conversation as far as until it got a little closer, where we started to realize, well, there's going to be more participants all at the same time than we had anticipated. We kind of thought it was going to be spaced out a little bit more, that could keep the roads open and keep the spacing. But as it got a little closer within that week, and the information they were starting to submit, we're like, there's going to be the participants were going to be closer together, and that affected that
another
change.
concern is the hours were about, on Saturday morning at about 6:30, I heard the Pace motorcycle zooming by my house, and you heard the participants, which have every right, they got it approved, yelling, supporting one another. But I don't think any of you guys would want a motorcycle with then several people yelling in the morning, trying to get you up. That was part of the other concern on that end. So it's just even the timing. If they're going to start, then, hey, let's, 8 to 5 or something, or, something along those
And
lines.
maybe mayor and council, something, obviously tonight, probably not the timing with all the other items we have, but to consider in the future, do we want a policy that establishes these type of activities, and where do we say yay and where do we say nay? Because they're going to continue to knock on our door in regards to these type of events. So.
It sounds like even not just notice, but perhaps a more clear setting, appropriate expectation set, right? You can expect this to happen at this time. I think that all in the delivery of that notice, the timing and the expectation of that.
Had I known, I probably would have planned and gotten reservations in January for a campsite and headed out of town.
Right,
hey,
right.
Right.
But those are the things that are simple that we can do, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but that's exactly, how do we go about putting that in place? Is that something that we need to make a motion toward the city council to do, or do we need to have a city councilman sponsor that, or council member sponsor that? How does that?
I believe this was enough information that now we can, as administration, report back to you as a mayor and council and say, hey, this is what we're starting to see happen, not only in this city, but other cities with these type of events. What's our policy going to be?
And create a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, it has to be a policy where the council should figure out, is the value that we receive from the city worth the brain damage that we go through to get it? Because I don't think it does. I don't think it meets there, and the city council didn't know anything about it. I was as surprised about the whole thing as you were. And I think there's got to be an evaluation of the benefit to the city versus the burden on the residents.
Right. And that's the thing that, like MJ says, is you just, like in Corey, there hasn't been one, so the question
Yeah.
is, what had the event happened, and MJ's like, oh, that was great, because I got to my house, I didn't have any road closures, and somehow they pulled it off, then that's great. Then maybe it's something that benefits the city if people in the city participate. If not, then they don't, and it doesn't. And
Even just a simple, hey, hang something in the back of my rear view mirror that says, hey, I'm a resident, I'm on the streets, and then it lets police officers know, hey, they're not trying to, I'm just trying to get back here and try, 'cause,
Yeah.
again, they're trying to do their job and, not trying to tie their hands as well.
yeah,
Yeah, we can establish a policy. We're starting to get hit also on our trail, and that's going to, I think, become more and more of a topic. And we just need to look at kind of what Councilmember Lundberg hit on is what's going to be our policy. And I will note on this event, again, it was not co-sponsored, so the city was not out saying, but they did cover the cost for our staffing time. Not to say that that's why we did it, but just to note they were covering those costs. Yeah.
So, and then, I appreciate you guys hearing that out. And I just had with Pioneer Day around the way and with Bartholomew Park, when it first was put in.
Did they tell you, MJ, that 800 North is closed on the 24th?
Hey.
I'm just kidding.
I'm actually out of town. I'm
There
good
should
to
no
go.
be
I-
any, there should be more road closures up there, hopefully.
I'm good. Hey, but you know what? The streets are getting fixed, and so that's awesome.
Yeah.
But just one other thing of Bartholomew Park, I know we work closely with Spring. It's free to Springville residents. We do an awesome fireworks show. I would love to see something that, you know, if there's some cross communication of saying, hey, we're a resident, here's a ticket, come on in. But if you're not a non-resident, can we get something? I mean, we've got pickleball courts. We're looking at other opportunities. I'm not talking exorbitant amounts, but if we're paying to use their resources, which I'm more than fair to do, but if we're paying and we're doing events and people are sponsoring in our event, it's getting mighty crowded. It would be great to help, you know, keep it a Mapleton crew, if per se, but that's
Just FYI, we're very much on that. There's been lots of talks back and forth with our council and their council about not just Bartholomew Pond, but the community center, the rec center, the library, things like that we could somehow work out an agreement, but
yeah.
the agreement just hasn't been made yet.
No, and thank you guys. There really has been a serious improvement. I mean, we've been here for 5 years, and a lot of things that were said last election and things are coming through, and so we really do appreciate the great work that you guys are doing, and so thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments, too.
I appreciate the manner in which you brought that before us. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Burdette, and I live up on 12th, and I'm concerned with the weeds along the bike trail. I went in to the city offices, and the girl took my information. Some guy called me in, like a dumb person. I didn't write down his name. And they wanted to know what I wanted done, because the weeds are about halfway up our fence all along there, and it's very dry and not very safe. And so I told him, we need something done with the weeds. You know, we'd be happy to do it if it was our property, but it's, you know. So he said he was going to contact Parks and Recreation. That was over a month ago. And I live just off 4th, between 4th and 9th on 1200 East.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we all along there, the weeds are just terrible, and I came before the fireworks stuff because it's a concern. Luckily this year, you narrowed the thing down and nobody behind us shot them off, but we've had them on our roofs and stuff, even though people out of the area. And it's a fire danger with as dry as everything is.
Yes.
And I don't know what can be done or who. Parks and like I said, they probably mowed maybe right off the path, maybe 3 feet, and all the rest, I don't know, it's further than from you to me. And they're about this high.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen them. I've fixed hundreds of flat tires, my kids getting stickers and those things, so.
Yeah, I get that too, but that's
Yeah.
not my concern. It's the fire and the fences are gonna go, the properties are gonna go, and there's no stopping it if it starts.
So, Camille, did you get her name?
Oh, Burdette. Yes.
So I'll give you a call tomorrow. We can talk in regards to that, and I'll go up and take a look at it. It's a little tricky, obviously, because the city takes care of the trail. We don't own in a lot of those areas the actual right-of-way, so CUP's more involved with that. But we do go out there and cut weeds along that trail too. So let me just go look at it, and we can talk. So
Do you want me to give her my phone number?
yeah, that'd be great. If
And that's my concern.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nat Harward, and I am the race director of the triathlon that just happened. And MJ, thanks for coming and voicing all of that, and thanks to all of you. And really, it was an amazing experience for everyone who came. And I have a lot of gratitude and thanks to owe to a lot of people here in this community. Logan was very helpful. Chief Jackson and his team were incredible. Captain Smith with Fire and Rescue did an incredible job. And it really was a delight to put on the event here in Mapleton. I live in Salt Lake City and love this place. My ancestors settled just up the road in Springville, but this is a wonderful place to be, and it really was just such a great experience to see young people from all over the country who were disappointed about a lost opportunity to race in Seattle, to then have a new opportunity to come and race here and have the chance to qualify to go to nationals and earn points in the series and continue to have a rare specific draft legal triathlon racing experience. So to the extent that we can make it happen here, I'm very appreciative on behalf of the 200 plus kids and their teams and their coaches and their families from literally all over the country. As a big thank you to all of them. I loved what MJ said, that there were a number of things that were fairly simple to fix, and I take full responsibility for everything that didn't go well at all. Anyway, where someone like MJ had a rough experience of, him being told that he couldn't get to his house. That wasn't the arrangement. I'm sorry that worked out. Like, I thought we had lined stuff up so that the residents could get to their driveways and everything. And so just all small pieces of communication breakdown. And I really wanted to get a notice out earlier to everybody and make sure that there was, just more information ahead of time, so that people knew exactly what was happening and could have some comment period and so on. And I don't expect your empathy or any of you to understand what it takes to put on a race, but to be asked to put on a race and then to make it happen in less than 8 weeks, when usually it's like a year process, it's just kind of how it went. So I'm sorry, for every bit of negative impact that happened. Like I said, I take total responsibility for it. And I'm here now, besides saying thanks, to say we'd love to do it again. Now we have a whole year. Let's talk through all of those things and make sure that we have stuff like even thought about, like you said, hang tags for residents in people's cars, because we want to shut some of the intersections, but if someone lives on that block, we can't expect the police officers to know who lives on that block. So if we give them a tag and it's like, okay, resident, boom, drive through, and it's not a problem. Also, I'm really sorry that you were told you couldn't get in until 3. We had an hour break every day. The last 15 minutes of every hour was also a break. So the roads, were open and could have passed. And again, I understand the flow of I know that and my team knows that, but getting that, to everyone who's out on the road takes more time, and just make sure the understanding is there. So, it was a fantastic experience. This was a great venue for it. Appreciative of Dallas and Chris opening up the lake so that we could swim there. Like I said, I'm working with Logan to, make the park and the facilities here available that we used to fire and rescue and police, and everyone who chipped in. So on my side of things, it really was an incredible experience. I know that, there was some things that we can improve on, and, people feeling a little shortchanged. I guess not really wanting to super toot my own horn, but as an example of my commitment to making it work, at 5 o'clock on Thursday, I got a phone call from Roberta James, who lives at 341 South, and she says I'm turning 85 this weekend, and I've got family all over the state coming, and I've been planning this party for 85 years, and now they can't come in the driveway, and I was like, no, they can. Yes, there'll be racers whizzing by, every couple of minutes, but the last 15 minutes is open. The last, there's an hour every day when it's open, and how can we work on it and make sure that happens? And her son lives a couple blocks south, so they just moved it there and made it work. But I spoke with her. I dropped off flowers in a car, wished her happy birthday, and made all that work. And we got some construction trucks in for one of the neighborhoods where they had a concrete truck coming to pour. So all that stuff, I believe, can be figured out. And like I said, I'm here now so that we all have ample time to get that straightened out in a year. And I know it wasn't perfect, but on the short notice, it really was an incredible experience. We'd love to come back and hope that we can. And, I'm committed to resolving all of these things and making sure that there are concessions or plans, or, that no one feels locked out, or if you want to go camp for a weekend, great, but that no one feels like they have to do that because this is such an imposition that that's the only thing that they can do. So I'm happy to take any questions or another offline meeting. I know I'm only supposed to be here for 2 or 3 minutes, so I don't want to dominate the time.
I will say one thing. I met Nat maybe 2 days before the event. I think you were working with Chris anyway. And a lot of these same questions came up that I had to house with people that knew me, that lived close to where this was going to impact them. And some of them were negative about it and said, well, I don't know how it's going to impact me, and I don't know how I'm going to keep my construction site going, and I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, here's someone that's working with Nat, who I hadn't met at the time, work with them and try and get this figured out, see if it works. Not knowing if there was a benefit to our community for having an event like this. But the opportunity to have this event seemed cool because they're more tenured athletes. They're, going for nationals and Olympic training and stuff like that. And so I thought, well, that might be kind of cool. And they were teenagers. One thing I didn't realize, and I didn't watch much of it, I maybe watched 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there is all, is one thing I didn't realize is I had my boys with me that are 11 years old and 10 years old and 9 years old or 8 years old. And these kids that were swimming and running and biking, it was actually an inspiration to them. And I'm sitting here thinking, all right, we fight these kids playing video games, we try and get them to work, we try and teach them good skills, we try and do all this stuff, and here are these kids that are out there busting it, sweating to death, and they can see that and setting this example, I'm like, okay, maybe this is a benefit I didn't realize we would get, but if you had the chance to go sit and watch, you'd realize this is a benefit that we could teach younger kids and younger, and I don't know how many participants live in Mapleton were there. I know there was a couple, but.
As far as I know, and this is something I'd love to turn around, we had one. And Brooklyn Hakes, she was super cute, she's 7 years old, or 9 years old, and yeah, she did.
Apparently
He's
she's
apparently like your
related to me
dad's fourth
somehow.
cousin. Yeah, I asked, I was like, is he your brother? And he's like, no, we're a little
I
related.
don't.
But anyway, it was really fun. I mean, it's her first race, and I went up to her when she finished and said, because you were the only one from Mapleton, you are the champion of the Mapleton Cup. And like, her smile was huge. And yeah, I mean, I know, I'll let you finish and then I'll.
I don't know her personally, but I do know her father, and supposedly we're related a couple generations back. But that's not the point. The point is that I didn't realize the benefit that we could get out of watching these exceptional athletes that were their actual age, putting forth the effort that they did to do what they did. And now, but I'm super sympathetic to Mr. Macias as well, and make sure that if this was something that we saw was a benefit to the community somehow that way, to inspire these kids to go out and do it, and there was a way to, give Chief Jackson more time to work with public safety and figure all that stuff out, then maybe that is a benefit to our community that we need to realize and say, hey, what else do we want to try and teach these kids? What else do we want them seeing or being inspired by? So that part was pretty cool. I didn't realize before. So thanks.
Well,
for
yeah,
giving us the
absolutely.
opportunity.
And again, as part of this, year to have a whole year to talk about it, I would love to, talk with Logan or talk with you guys to figure out really how to make it the most of the opportunity for the community. How do we make it exciting and accessible for youth that are here? Can I price it so that, X dollars from every entry goes back to city youth programs and so on? So I know just on short notice, like we didn't have the opportunity to actually talk about a co-sponsorship, and maybe you aren't involved in, interested in that. But for me, everything's on the table, and I know how that this is a great place to put on an event for the kids who came, but I would also like to make it great for you guys and your families and all the kids who are here. And I think there are a lot of options on the table that we can talk about to do that, and would love to make it something that everyone here kind of celebrates and is excited to have.
Cool.
And it seems like you're really receptive to feedback and things, and I think we've had a volunteer from a neighborhood to maybe collaborate to
Yeah.
make it appropriate for that as well. But I'm very interested in ongoing dialogue with the group. I see there's definitely community value that fits with us, and like you said, I think there are things we can overcome if we improve communication across
For
the
sure.
board. And having done big events, I feel like it probably was pretty successful.
Yep.
Neighborhood decide, but
Cool.
I'm very interested in ongoing dialogue.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Well, I hope this doesn't count as a bribe, but I have a lot of extra socks, so I'll leave some of those out. And if anyone wants swag socks from the event, then feel free to help yourselves.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nat. Appreciate
Yep,
it.
You bet.
Mayor and council, I'll get back with you with some policy ideas and pros and cons, and we can start discussing that, so.
Sounds good.
We probably, Chief, we close down our streets on activities, tell me, maybe 3-4 times a year on stuff like this?
Pioneer Day, obviously the biggest. We do a little bit of street closure during the Scarecrow Festival, food trucks, some of the things like that. This one was a little more than we're used to. It's down Main Street quite a ways. And Matt was awesome to work with, but we can look at routes too.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Chief. There was a few others that signed up on public forum to speak, but if you're wanting to speak toward a public hearing item, you're welcome to wait till then as well. All right, seeing that that's everyone, we'll move on to our consent agenda items, which are 3 items, excuse me.
one was added.
Is Donna here, Anderson? Did you want to speak now, or? Oh, it's number 5. Oh, no, number 5 is great. Perfect. That's what you were telling me earlier. Okay, number 5. Got it. Okay. All right, any questions on the consent agenda items?
I just have a question on number 2. Is that a kind of new position or a new need? Is that for growth, I guess?
Yeah, that
I
will,
just thought it might be good to have a little discussion, something in the minutes.
you bet. You're talking about the appointment of the assistant? Yes, so that would be a new position. And mentioned in the staff report that was sent out today, obviously these last 2 years especially, we've just, with all of the projects that we have going, we've noticed we need help in the administration side of things. What we're proposing here is with Sean, is he still would remain a community development director. His assignments there would remain the same, so he'll fulfill everything that he's doing now. But we would utilize him on a lot of miscellaneous big projects. In fact, there's 3 or 4 right now that I've already asked him if this goes through to help with. Water rates is a topic we've been looking at. Finishing to revise the website, we want to wrap that up. Have him help us with that, and some also some HR things as well. So, but it just boils down to the amount of projects that we're experiencing.
So we've got needs beyond the typical job description of a community development director, and we have someone with the skills to address those.
Correct.
Yeah, he does have the skills.
Does
Well,
have the skills.
I think we need to do a panel.
Not on the
I think we need to do a panel interview right now in the public hearing.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Oh, you made the motion, oh.
We have a motion by Councilmember Egbert and a second by Councilman Garrett.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Jones, yes.
Lundberg, yes.
All right, and item number 4 is an action item. It's consideration of an ordinance granting preliminary plat approval for the Payne subdivision, a 34-lot subdivision located approximately 300 west and 350 south in the RA1 zone with the TDR receiving overlay. Mr. Conroy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a property you're familiar with. It's about 27 acres, has a little bit of frontage on Main Street and then also on 600 South. The council reviewed a request to rezone this initially in early January of this year, and the request was to rezone the property from A2 to RA1 with a TDR receiving site overlay. They were proposing 38 lots at the time. The council continued that application. There was a number of concerns, including the extension of 3rd West to Maple Street, density, a variety of topics, and so the council continued it. The applicant then returned on January 20th, and the council did approve the rezone at that time with the stipulation that they could have no more than 34 lots and that the 3rd West extension be eliminated from the plan. And so that's what occurred. This is the aerial, again, just to remind you, orient you to the property. The Silverleaf subdivision, Copperhead, and Autumn Lane subdivisions are to the south and the west. Those are the ones that you see on the map. This was the concept plan that was reviewed at the city council meeting in January when it was approved. One of the things that we'll talk about briefly tonight, I'll bring it up in just a moment, is the Stub Street. With this plan, this property owner that has frontage on Main Street had requested Stub Street as part of the proposal, and so that was included in the concept that was reviewed by the city council. That Stub Street is no longer being proposed, so again, we can talk about that in just a moment. So the application before you is for preliminary plat for 34 lots. The lots range in size from about a ½ acre to about 1 1/4 acres. As I mentioned, there is no Stub Street proposed. This is the revised concept plan. If you look on the back, this is where the Stub Street originally was shown. It's no longer there. But other than that, it's very consistent with what the city council had reviewed. We've got the larger lots as buffer lots to the existing subdivisions here and also on the northwest portion, but generally the same configuration as what was reviewed and approved in January. Since the lots meet the minimum size for the zone, it's consistent with the City Council's rezone requirements. Staff is recommending approval. The one item you will want to discuss is that Stub Street. Stub Streets typically are required when there's a need for access for future development and or to improve circulation in a particular area. The property owner that had requested the Stub Street is no longer requesting it. They're satisfied that they can develop without it. And we had a number of residents that were concerned about the provision of the Stub Street as well. And so the Planning Commission's recommendation was that the stub was not required. But again, that would be something that the council will want to discuss. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this one.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, this,
Let's go-
actually, this is an action item,
This is
so
action
it
item.
doesn't
There's no
require it,
public hearing,
but you can.
Don, would you mind clarifying the Planning Commission meeting minutes versus just so everyone's in the loop about what the documentation was?
Yeah, sorry, the meeting minutes are incorrect that are in your packet. The motion was to recommend approval of the plat without the Stub Street, and it was a 3-to-1 vote in favor of that motion.
The action that we take tonight, will it be subject to the updated ordinances, the updated ordinance that we're going to talk about later for subdivisions?
It would not. This one would have come in before
Because
that
the application
process
was
would
made
have
because it started in
initiated
January.
before,
Okay.
right.
So my question really is, I don't know that it's a question or more just a comment, but even back when I was on the Planning Commission years ago, I know there was a lot of talk from the city to a preference against cul-de-sacs, creating cul-de-sacs when at all possible. Even in the subdivision, in tonight's subdivision language, there's discussion, that same commentary about avoiding cul-de-sacs. And so I'm interested to have more perspective. As we talked earlier today, it's my understanding that there is a different owner of those 8 lots even, right? Is that right?
That, I'm not sure. I know it was potentially going to be sold to a separate party, but I'm not sure if that sale has taken place.
I'm curious to know, and I reached out to the owner of the adjacent property, the undeveloped property, to see what his perspective was. Two months ago, he really wanted that road. So I don't know if he's indifferent to that road or doesn't want that road. But I just would like some perspective from you in terms of a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
I know from a resident and homeowner perspective the beauty of a cul-de-sac, but from a city standpoint, that does pose some challenges. I know there have been some concerns with additional traffic. However, I think it speaks to reason that when you have multiple points of entry or egress, the volume is reduced for all of those points of egress. And so while the concern of traffic is a fair concern, I think an additional point of egress can only help alleviate that. So Can you speak to the cul-de-sac question?
Yeah, I think all those are excellent points. So cul-de-sacs, typically we do try to discourage when there aren't other options or when it makes sense to make connectivity, and there's a number of reasons for that. Primarily is being able to disperse traffic, as you mentioned. Another one is, Stephen can speak to this, cul-de-sacs are a little more challenging for snow removal and other services. But typically what you're looking at, let me pull up I included the section that speaks to the stub road in the code, and what it says is, in order to facilitate the development of an adequate and convenient circulation system within the city and to provide access for the logical development of adjacent vacant properties, the city may, as a condition of approval, require the subdivision plan to include one or more temporary dead-end roads. So you're looking at, is it important for circulation? Does it create a benefit for circulation? And 2, is it needed for development of the adjacent properties? In this case, I think staff's preference would be to have that, but it's not this road isn't going to create a significant circulation benefit to the city, right? You've got 2 access points on Main Street now. Having a third isn't necessarily essential to ensure that there is, adequate traffic flow. Stephen, you can speak to any more of those points.
I think my point was, or the reason why I thought this was a preferred idea was, one of the primary concerns that I think in even improving this in the initial instance was the amount of density going in here. And so there was the determination to reduce it from 38, which was feasible, to 34 lots, and they've maintained that. And that's one aspect that I do appreciate, that they, consistent with that prior approval, they've done that. But at least in that area where the stub road would have been, those lots are bigger than they would have otherwise been, because you ultimately have, you can avoid the stub road requirement that takes up a lot of the property. And so those are some nice, open, big lots, which fundamentally right in the middle of our city like that, having those larger lots, I think, is a primary factor for what we were concerned about initially with regard to this development. So I look at the other aspect of it was that I've always recognized is that speed of traffic is one thing that is always a concern, and and that's the beauty of cul-de-sacs, is that they create, in my mind, a more open fill. I know they're probably not the greatest for clearing off snow and everything else, but I see the, and know there are a number of cul-de-sacs up in the area where I live, and I think from the perspective of the residents and having the rural atmosphere, the rural feel that they provide, is exactly what we want in this city. So, unless there was a need for from an access standpoint, for the continuity of flow of traffic, that's a factor that I think outweighs that. But as you mentioned, I don't think we need that here. So I do very much like this more open field, larger lots that this provides.
I actually agree with that. I also agree that, cul-de-sacs are nice to avoid when possible or when it makes sense. There's 2 accesses off the main road, the collector road, which is Main Street, and I live on a cul-de-sac, so maybe I'm biased, but there's a subdivision that's just south of here, a block, I think. That's 600 South, I think?
Yeah, it's the next. 700
South?
Next development down.
Yeah, and there was a parade of homes in there this year, and I mean, that cul-de-sac's beautiful, and I agree with Jim where the backs of those lots can touch like that and not having the road go through fits more of our rural, type feel, I believe. If it was a reason to cause danger and, accessibility and other things, then yeah, I would say, that's a reason to not do it, but I don't see that being a factor here based on the fact that both of those loop off of Main Street there. And the cul-de-sac does, they sell those lots then the cul-de-sac higher for a reason. And, I think that's attractive, so.
Just if I can, for the record, my opinion on cul-de-sacs from a public works standpoint is about connectivity only. The fact that they're a little harder to plow, I'm not gonna, I don't want to stop a developer putting a cul-de-sac in for 3 or 4 days a year that we got to plow this. The benefits, like you said, Jim, outweigh the concerns, but certainly when I look at it, and when Sean and I look at it, we're looking at connectivity, and this is one of those places where that's not an issue.
Sean, what perspective or what reasoning have the applicant, have they indicated as to why they want to remove the stub road that has been there from the beginning? I mean, clearly it's a bigger lot. I'm sure some of the neighbors have probably have some desire to move there as well. But what conversations have you had?
That was primarily a bigger lot, and then 2, it just adds costs that they don't really get any benefit from, providing that road is not needed for this subdivision. And so it's just a fairly significant cost for something that isn't benefiting their development.
One other thing that, this is the way my mind works because I think about this stuff because this is what costs money, is I would assume that this east property that we don't have a plat for or conceptual for, I don't believe. We don't, right?
Which, no,
And
no.
then, if he wanted the stub road before, I would imagine it's because he thought he could get sewer off of this road, which would be less expensive for him to develop versus somewhere else, but
But
it's,
sewer's not quite an issue at this point, either way. Is
No,
that
he
right,
gets-
Sean?
he can get sewer off Main Street. You can't get it from
Right,
this
Right.
street because it's too shallow. That's why those homes on 600 South, the road, when you drive, it goes up on a ramp. It's because the sewer's shallow on that side. So the sewer, he's gonna get, the cheapest way for him to run sewer is just out of Main Street, unless it's a UDOT road, which it is. So you'd want to get out of the UDOT road and come back and pull it from somewhere else. But since that's not possible, then I'm sure he's fine with just pulling the sewer out of Main Street, because that's the only way for him to get it.
So if this, in my mind, the ordinance text that you've just read, I believe this meets that requirement for me. So if this doesn't, I'm curious to know what does. It's a matter of perspective. I'm just trying to understand what
I
would be,
think-
no, I understand if it's one egress, I understand you need to have more than one.
Right.
But even in terms of safety and connectivity, I think that is a really important thing, not just for access, but just so we're not creating pockets of exclusive neighborhoods. I mean, is that what we want to do or not? Give me some perspective on that.
Well, I think to your point, and maybe I'm just not quite clear, is that first, the number one, from my perspective, the number one perspective that the city council has historically looked at to determine the requirement of stub road is it necessary, and does the adjoining property owner ask for it? And that is a primary concern, which we don't have in this case, and that's referenced in, to a certain extent, in our ordinance. And then the connectivity aspect of it is a primary focal point of that ordinance provision, and I think, as we mentioned, connectivity is not the issue here. And so, from my perspective, I don't think it does, in fact, meet the requirements that the city, not only in our ordinance, but historically how we've evaluated whether or not to require a stub road meet. So I think that's the one aspect of it that I don't know if you have any further comment on, Sean, to address, but I guess that's my question, Leslie, is that you're saying that you think that it meets the ordinance
I
requirements?
feel like as I read that ordinance text and I look at this, I believe that connectivity with that third access, I think it adds, because the main concern that we've heard from neighbors is traffic. And I don't see a lot of people cutting, if that road were there, through to the main street. As I understood the letter that we received, I don't believe that adds to traffic on 6 South. It gives you a third in and out, which would alleviate the flow of traffic on all 3 of those access points. So there's that. I believe that it adds connectivity. Connectivity to me means connecting neighborhoods. And maybe there's some difference in perspective on what connectivity means from us, maybe. That's what it means to me. And maybe two access points from an emergency services perspective is sufficient. A third, because of the connectivity piece, I think is 2's good, 3's better. So that's how I read it, and so it meets that for me in that way.
Sean, when we do I don't know if we call it dead-end road, how many lots can you do on a single-access road?
Up to 30.
Up to 30, and we have how many here? 34? So we're just barely above the single-access road requirement. So from a traffic standpoint, 34 lots with 2 access points onto a main collector road.
Yeah,
You correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but that's not a traffic issue. It's nowhere. So I think the traffic is one concern. One thing that Leslie did say earlier, and I think you said the opposite, Sean. Not the opposite, but Leslie had a conversation a couple months ago with the neighboring property to the east, saying that he did want a stub road.
He told
But
me
now-
explicitly that, yes, I do want that road, I need that road, otherwise I'm left to either just develop on one side, just do a single track road. And so if he is not interested in the road now, does not want it, or is indifferent, those 2 things are very different. And so when I didn't get a response from him today because I mean, he's busy with his life, but
So did you said something in your presentation about him.
Yeah, we've got an email from, I didn't include the email, but let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, yeah, he basically came to us and said, hey, I'm no longer asking for the stub road.
Sean, can you go back to the description of the code that you had? 'Cause my interpretation is a little different.
Yeah, and just
The
one other
word
thing.
may, the may is the trigger. I actually
Yeah,
find
may.
it to be the anomaly is to add the third access if needed. So that description, I think, is a change. And then this stub road was not part of the transportation plan by any means either. So it's not something we've deemed as necessary. We didn't have a design. And then we have no design put forth for the property to the east. So I'm less inclined to even worry about that. Now, typically for public safety purposes, I'm with everybody else, which is, we don't love especially a long cul-de-sac, but this is such a unique parcel and I see two pretty solid access points. So I'm inclined, because of how I interpret our code, where we may, the city may, as a condition, require the stub road. See, I see that as, that's the exception. So what we're following to me right here without the stub road is the rule. So I'm inclined to approve it without the stub road, as Planning Commission did, even though I know a third one might be beneficial for flow, whatever. I don't think it's absolutely essential for this, so I'd err on the side of how it fits with the adjacent properties that are already existing.
I agree with both you and Leslie. There's a part of what Leslie's saying that I agree with too, that you don't want to just advertise, just have a road, a city full of cul-de-sacs. But where it does make sense, where it does make sense, I think that it's good, and it changes the feel and gives you more rural feel and gives people more opportunity in their backyards to do, those type of things. But, and this situation certainly leads me to believe that it's one of those situations where cul-de-sac does make sense. Now, this whole thing about require the subdivision plan to have one or more temporary dead-end streets and the access for the logical development adjacent vacant properties. This is one of the issues that was in the 20-year-old lawsuit we had here in the city and spent a heck of a lot of money we shouldn't have fighting. And I was in mediation for 10 hours one day over this topic. And if it's not absolutely vital and necessary, I'm saying just leave it be, is my opinion. 'Cause it's not worth fighting over. But
Well, you know the primary reason for that was historically, the adjacent landowner asked for a requested stub road. That went away.
yeah.
And as a result, the city made the determination with that gone, no longer was that the primary factor that we've used that in making that determination. So I think to Leslie's point, I would agree that there's probably some differences of, there's no certainty as to what the implication might be with respect to traffic flow through here. I know that I would just give a contrary point of view that I know that if you recall, when we reviewed this initially, there was a lot of public, especially to the west there, subdivisions concerned about added traffic coming through their subdivision. And so that's, from my perspective, another way to eliminate that potential risk is without the stub road, then ultimately that there's going to be less potential for the traffic coming through there and heading west through those neighborhoods. So I think that, coupled with the more open feel from the standpoint of larger lots, is a primary factor that we've been trying to incorporate within this city, even in this, when we first reviewed this property proposal. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I understand there's no certainty there as to how that might be.
I also agree that the cul-de-sac seem to add open space. I live on one now and I love it. I don't think I'd ever live without a cul-de-sac. But it does add an open feel to it. I think one thing about Mapleton, it's a little difficult. You can't just go down any street and end up anywhere. And that also adds to the feel of Mapleton, I think. So,
Well, I think before the iPhone was created, cul-de-sacs were an issue. But now you put it in your phone, it doesn't take you to the end of a cul-de-sac, and then you drive out and drive around. Google knows better. So, anyway, they know where you're going anyway.
Well, I'll speak to my opinion. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm leaning towards requiring this stub road because, one, when this development first came in, the idea that the tricky nature of this subdivision kind of forced all of our hands to allow two cul-de-sacs in the first place. And that, to me, just doesn't sit well. I'm not a proponent to cul-de-sacs, even though as a resident, as a person that would own a house, I would love a cul-de-sac, and for all of the positive reasons that's already been spoken. But I sit here in a seat as a city planner, and I have to use my judgment as a city planner in voting on this, not as a citizen who would love to live in a cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac, I think we've already kind of got our hands tied. We have to have these two cul-de-sacs in this development. And now by removing the requirement for the sub road, we force another cul-de-sac. That's a third cul-de-sac that we're putting in. That's the reason why I'm hesitant to just say, oh, well, we don't need it, and the traffic flow is either way is insignificant, which means that we can, okay, now just allow this third cul-de-sac. I'm kind of hesitant on that just because of that reason. And as a first responder, Google is awesome, but as a first responder, you're responding to a 911 call. You pull into a dead-end road. That's life and death. And I'd like maybe Chief Jackson to speak to that. How serious do you feel, Chief, a cul-de-sac is to public safety?
Well, a third point would help in the event of a triathlon. Just saying. Just saying.
Due respect there, and I've had a little bit of an opposite experience with cul-de-sacs. As long as the responders know the addresses inside the cul-de-sac, meaning that we don't give it a funky name that's obscure and hard to find, I've actually had pretty good luck with cul-de-sacs. As long as there's enough room to get that engine turned around and get a few vehicles in there, because if a house goes up, it's not a few vehicles, it's 5 or 6. So as long as it's wide enough to hold that, then I'm good with cul-de-sacs.
And we've no doubt had more accidents on intersections than in cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me say one other thing, Theron, about city planning is, we put things in place like the ordinance Sean just explained to us for good city planning, right? And says, if it's this scenario, then yes, a cul-de-sac a cul-de-sac doesn't make sense. But so I think we can be good city planners and also allow certain things. If a cul-de-sac creates more rural fill, and that's an opinion by people, then that goes right along with.
And I totally agree with what you're saying, and there are positives, absolutely, and that's why I'm on the fence, first of all. But I'm just kind of leaning hesitantly because we're already creating two, and now we're creating a third. That's the only reason why I'm kind of hesitant.
And so in the scenario that it does make sense and it meets the ordinance, I think that is good city planning by allowing it. That's what I was going to say.
I see that.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we have a full schedule here, so what I'd like to do is make a motion, if that's okay. This is an action item.
Yes.
Let's move this along, if we may, and see. I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance granting a preliminary plat approval for the Payne subdivision. It's a 34-lot subdivision located at approximately 300 west, 350 south, the RA1 zone, with this TDR receiving overlay. As it has been presented to us, consistent with the Planning Commission's recommended approval without the stub road.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Lumberg and a second by Councilmember Egbert.
Egbert, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Jones, no.
Lundberg, yes.
Carlson, yes.
All right, great. Thanks, Sean. All right, we'll move on to our 4 public hearing items. Number 5 is consideration of an ordinance rezoning 2.08 acres at 1116 East, 900 North from A2 to RA2. Sean.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a 2-acre parcel in the A2 zone, has 1 existing dwelling on it. There's a mix of lot sizes in the area ranging from a 1/3 acre to 2+ acres. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from A2 to RA2, and they've included a concept plan that includes 5 total lots, so 4 new building lots, ranging in size from a 1/3 acre to a little over 1/2 of an acre. This is the proposed concept plan where you've got the existing house, and the lot to the east is half acre, a little larger, and then 3 third-acre lots, a little bit larger than third acre, that would front on 800 North. So the existing zoning, you can see it's kind of a mix. The gray, or the green, excuse me, is A2, which is 2 acres or 1 acre with TDRs. Purple is 1 acre or half acre with TDRs, and the yellow is RA2, which is what they're proposing, which is third acre minimum. So that's what the existing zoning is. If you look at the general plan map, you see that the green goes away. The east and to the south is the 1 acre or half acre with TDRs, and the subject property and those surroundings would go to third acres potentially. So in this case, the proposal is consistent with the general plan. We're just reviewing the rezoning. You can obviously include conditions on the concept plan, but we're not approving the subdivision of that tonight. That would come back before you. But staff's recommendation is approval of the rezone as it's consistent with the general plan. Happy to answer any questions if there are any on this one.
Okay, this being a public hearing item, let's open it for public comment. We'll invite you to come forward and state your name first, and you're welcome to come forward.
Hi, my name is Donna Anderson. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
And I live to the east of the property in question at 878 North, 1200 East. And I'm here to express my opposition to this rezoning of the property into smaller half-acre, third-acre lots, because no one else on the entire street has such small lots, and it would be right in the middle of a backyard homestead neighborhood of 1 to 2 acre lots. I attended the Planning Commission meeting about this matter, and I was deeply concerned about the Planning Commission's attitude, which brushed aside the legitimate concerns that I expressed. One of the Planning Commission members berated me and accused me of infringing on my neighbor's property rights and saying that I didn't care about the community. So I would like to point out that property rights are tempered by zoning laws in every city in America, including Mapleton. That's pretty standard, and that I was invited to go to the meeting and express my views by the city. And I would also like to point out that this particular Planning Commission member is a developer who lives on a 2 acre lot in a 2 acre neighborhood, so he obviously values it for himself, having larger lots. He said that I was being selfish and that I didn't reflect the views of my neighborhood, so I went around my whole neighborhood after the meeting and asked all my neighbors what they thought. I talked to my neighbors all up and down the street, and only one of them had mixed feelings about this. The others all wanted to see the neighborhood remain in 1 to 2 acre lots. They wanted to keep the backyard homestead character of the street, and they're concerned about water because this area has chronic low water pressure. They have general concerns about denser development in the neighborhood, about the city of Mapleton, and in Utah County at a time when there's a drought and traffic congestion is high. They express that they don't want Mapleton to be like the rest of Utah County because they believe that so much high-density development is turning the Wasatch Front into another Los Angeles with all of the attendant environmental damage that comes from large-scale rapid development in a fragile desert environment. So I don't think that my views are selfish. I think they're realistic, and they're backed up by deep concerns about air quality, water shortages, and social issues such as crime and traffic congestion. I believe that creating another Spanish Fork out of the beautiful town of Mapleton is folly from an environmental and social point of view. Uncontrolled growth of the type that's being pushed by many developers in Utah County is the destructive and damaging philosophy of the cancer cell, and it will kill the character of a town that is one of the best places in Utah to raise a family. It's not the Planning Commission's job to berate people who appear at public hearings that the city has invited them to for the purpose of hearing their opinions about zoning changes. My neighbor, not me, stands to gain from a zoning change, so calling me selfish when I reflect the views of the neighborhood and the long-standing views of many citizens of Mapleton was out of line. I like my neighbor. I would not object to his property being divided into 1-acre lots that are consistent with the character of the neighborhood, but I think it's unwise from a zoning point of view and insensitive to the views of the people who live in this neighborhood to plop higher density housing right down in the middle of larger lots on a street where all the other lots are 1 or 2 acres. These people who live in this, on this street have paid a price to respect and comply with Mapleton's zoning laws, and that should be respected. Thank you.
My name is Forrest Anderson. We live on the corner, just adjacent to the Coons property, which is we're on the northeast corner there. Would you mind going back a couple of slides to the one that shows the, yeah, that one, the one right.
Sorry.
From 400 north to 900 north on 12th East, you can see on the right-hand side, it's all 1-acre lots. On the left-hand side, it's all, well, with the exception of 2 lots, it's all 1-acre lots. Coons property is a 2-acre lot, and at the southern end, there's another 2-acre lot. But of the 20 lots on that street, they're all 2 or 1-acre lot, and none of the 1-acre lots could be subdivided. They're all locked in, so there's no way to split those up. They're all, you know, there's a fence on the back side with the nature trail, and on the other side there's houses. So there's no way to, so the only property that could be subdivided would be the Coons property. So in terms of the nature of that street, and if you go from, actually from 1000 East clear to the mountains, every lot on that street, and even some further south, are 1 or 2-acre lots or larger. So just in terms of the nature of the neighborhood and the way it was planned in the beginning, it seems incongruous with that nature to divide it up into smaller lots. If you go further west to 1000, only then do you get into 1/3 and 1/2 acre lots.
Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Anderson. Is there anyone else? All right, that being all of our public comment, we'll close the public comment and turn back to the council to address some of the concerns.
Want to see if the applicant has any?
Oh, yeah, is the applicant present? No applicant.
Not here.
Okay.
Well, I've got a question. So as I've looked at this one's really interesting to me, and I don't really understand why the general plan has these 2 particular parcels changed from the A2 zone or RA1. Why were they looking at medium density for those two isolated? Does anyone have any context on that?
So these have not changed. This did not change with
Okay,
our update.
so they've just been that way.
So if you look,
Okay.
sorry, I don't have it zoomed out enough, but from here,
Yeah, I've got it up. I've got the
from
one.
1200 East all the way north,
That's just how it's always been.
it's medium density.
Okay,
so
so we
the-
didn't change it with the recent general
Correct.
plan on these 2. It's just been that way. So we didn't change it for less or more density.
Correct.
Okay, they just are, I really find this one out of place, this proposal. My perspectives are consistent with the comments from the public hearing. For me, well, yes, technically, the general plan says what was perhaps intended at the time this was created. I don't necessarily feel like I would be beholden to that, because 1/3 acres surrounded by 1 acres is so contrary to all of the development we've tried to protect. So I've really struggled with this one. I felt like it was out of place.
Before we move forward, do you think there's a benefit to have the applicant here for this item?
He was notified, and they were notified. I'm not sure why they wouldn't be here.
Maybe something to consider mayor and council a little bit with that, so.
That would be
I know him
important.
fairly well. I would think that he would want to be here. It's surprising
I would
me that he's
assume.
not.
I
Yeah,
think
that-
it's
I mean,
important
you
that
can-
they're here.
You could continue until he,
I'm not opposed to continuing it. I think this one, they should be present.
This is a
Is there any feedback you want to give him that he can review and come back with, or do you want to just continue and be done?
So I just, so you know, we had some of the same, obviously, issues, concerns that are kind of obvious on this. The difference on this one to some others is that the street usually is a good divider of zones. I mean, that's what you have here. You have third acre next to the larger lots. And so from that regard, that's why I think staff was saying, well, it's consistent with the general plan. You have a natural buffer. But
Well,
certainly you
it's-
could look at,
Let
lot
me just-
sizes.
Can I just
within-
ask you a question on that? So I would agree with that generally speaking, but I think the point there being is if you have 1 acre on one side and quarter acre on the other side, from my perspective, a street doesn't make a sufficient buffer. That's not an adequate buffer there. If it's, I agree that if it was half acre on the other side,
So are you saying?
that would be the ideal thing. And so he's got, there's 3 third acre lots presumptively here where it would make, it seemed to me that the better buffer would be at most 2 half-acre lots right there on that street,
Two
wouldn't
and
it?
two.
Which is consistent with the 2 lots behind them and 2.
I agree.
Well, okay.
I would recommend bringing that feedback to him and continuing the item till he can be here.
Okay.
Unless other council members want to provide other feedback.
says, I don't care, I don't want to be there, just do it.
Yeah.
Either way.
Or you can
To
make
me,
a
this is
motion.
one of the biggest challenges we had when we spent a year and a half, for me, 3 years reviewing the general plan and what parts and what specific areas of the general plan do we review. To me, this is more of a, how do you feel about the placement of that purple section, right? Do you feel that it legitimately should have been brought up further north? Because if you look back and zoom out of the whole thing, the RA2 zoning and the general plan or the medium density goes further east even if you go 4 blocks north, right? So it's really, really tricky and it just comes down to your, I think, preference of where does that buffer need to happen and how much does it need to happen?
And I think that the way that you've just suggested is an easy way to handle that issue. And
Where if we
with
did,
the subdivision ordinance amendments we're proposing, that would be consistent with that.
Right.
so if the RA2 went to 900 north, like Theron's suggesting, I think that's what you're suggesting,
Or I'm suggesting.
or Jessica.
I'm-
If RA2 went to the north, how many acres does he have entirety right there? 2.08? So if he did,
A
if it
total
was
of 4
RA2,
half-acres.
yeah,
half acres.
with a TDR overlay.
I would be more inclined to do 4 half acres and not have third acres there.
Okay. We want to make a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue this item.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Egbert and a second by Councilmember Jones.
Garrett, yes.
Jones, yes.
Lundberg, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Great. We'll move on to item number 6.
So we can, you'll provide that feedback, I'm certain, and
Yeah.
then ultimately, unfortunately, you have to come back, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
You're welcome back anytime. All right, number 6 is consideration of an ordinance applying a TDR receiving site overlay to 7.76 acres located approximately 250 east, 1600 south, and granting preliminary plat approval for the Garfield Estates Plat A subdivision consisting of 4 lots. Sean?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this parcel is just under 8 acres. It's zoned A2. It has frontage on 1600 South, and then also a recently constructed Magnolia Place, which is a cul-de-sac on the southern end. The applicant is requesting a TDR overlay and then a proposal to create 3 additional building lots. So there's 1 existing home on the site that would remain on the 4th lot. This is the subject property. If you look on the back, the screen here, so this is 16th South. This is the Magnolia Lane. It was originally called Maple Vale when it was approved. It was approved in a PRC zone. And this is the recently completed Magnolia Place cul-de-sac that abuts the south. This is Perry Hollow Drive, so that's part of the preserve. So you've got roughly 1 acre lots. There's some smaller than 1 acre as part of this PRC. And then you've got some existing larger lots that haven't been part of subdivisions. So this is the proposed subdivision plat. You've got two lots that would front on 16th South with the existing home being left on about 2.3 acres and a new 1.3 acre lot, and then two lots that are nearly 2 acre. One's a little larger than 2 and a little under 2 that would front on Magnolia Place. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple as far as the zoning standards. Our recently amended changes to the TDR ordinance allow you to increase your density by no more than 50% of what would be allowed on the site. And so this is consistent with that. The lot sizes are consistent with the other lots in the area, and staff's recommending approval.
Thanks, Sean. This being a public hearing item, we'll open it for public comment. If you have something regarding this item, come forward. Seeing there are none, we'll close the public hearing. And is the applicant here? Would you like to address anything further? Okay. I mean, Sean did a good job. Congrats, Sean.
We should give him a promotion.
Yeah, that's a good
As long as we can call him the intern for a while.
assistant to the assistant.
I have no questions on this one.
I have a couple. Well, one clerical thing, I saw on the map, there's the 1600 south is labeled 1600 north on the plat map.
On the plat, yeah, we'll correct that.
Dang engineers.
I know.
No, engineers.
Surveyors prepare plats, not
No.
engineers.
There's an asterisk.
Good plug there, engineer. My other question is the right-of-way already secured? Is the adjacent landowner already okay with that, or is this kind of a proposal that they have to still work that out?
You're talking on this side?
Correct.
On the west?
Yeah.
So the Maple Vale subdivision stubbed the road to here. This piece was part of that master plan.
Right.
So there's 3 additional lots. So yes, the proposal, the most likely scenario is that this will get extended and then probably either cul-de-sac here or make its way back out to Main Street. This parcel, we don't know what the future is. There's no approved plan on it. And so for now, we're just requesting that we get that right of way so we make sure that that option is available to them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, and we have a preliminary on that one, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the Skinner one.
Yeah. I'll just make a comical comment. I don't know how many of you guys were involved in that subdivision to the south, but there were several comments made about the land, that the landowner, this landowner, previous landowner probably, said that over my dead body will this lot be developed, and
He did.
It's been less than 2 years since it's been developed.
But he may have lived up to his, I think he did.
What he gets for
Lived
saying
up
that.
to his word.
I hope that's not the case.
Any other questions?
I have any other questions or dumb comments?
I'll make the motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance applying a TDR overlay to 7.76 acres located at approximately 250 East, 1600 South, and grant a preliminary plat approval for the Garfield Estates Plat A subdivision consisting of 4 lots.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jones and a second by Councilman Lumberg.
Jones, yes.
Lundberg, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Garrett, yes.
All right. Number 7 is consideration of an ordinance rezoning 2.013 acres located 1155 West, 800 South from A2 to RA1 with the TDR receiving overlay and granting preliminary plat approval of the 2-lot Emerald Corner subdivision. Sean.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this is a 2-acre parcel in the A2 zone with 1 existing home. It's kind of the last piece of right-of-way that we need on 8th South. Their lot actually extends clear almost across the road. They're requesting approval to rezone to RA1 with the TDR to create 1 new building lot. So this one's really simple. It's, you can see, excuse me, this is the existing zoning. So everything around it is developed primarily with 1 acre or half-acre lots. The general plan shows it. Sorry, that keeps skipping. The general plan shows it as appropriate for 1 acre or half acre with TDRs. And so staff's recommendation is approval. This is the proposed plat, so you've got a 1 acre lot on the east and a half acre lot to the west. Any questions on this one?
One of us has the only house that abuts this property.
I was just gonna say, I'd like to know how much clamor there is from the residents to the
Well,
south.
my husband said he was gonna show up and be against it. I send a letter of support to this for the planning commission. It's a great piece to actually get right before the middle school comes up. We need that corner with curb gutter sidewalk desperately, and that road finished up. So it's lots of support in my neighborhood for it. My only concern is that is a huge chunk that the property owner basically deeds over to the city essentially, right? If he can quitclaim if he wants, but so he did have some concerns about, is there any historic reciprocity or something for the amount of property he would be allowing the city to use when he's got to put in the curb gutter sidewalk and everything. And I don't know if there's any precedent for that.
That's better.
Do have to suck on it. I am the loud one.
Yeah, we've had that conversation with him as well, and it's kind of, not all properties are created equally, and when you subdivide, you take over the responsibility to install the improvements and do that. If he was not subdividing and the city wanted to go in and make these improvements, there would be compensation in that case, but where he's requesting an additional lot, that burden does fall to
And
the
that's a
applicant.
conversation I've also had, is
Yeah.
I said, there's no harm in asking, but
Yeah.
if you're gonna develop it, that's on you, so.
And I'm sure when he bought the land, he looked at the future transportation plan and knew that that road was gonna be cut in that far.
That's a big assumption, Theron.
He's been there for quite a while.
Yes, he's been there.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance to rezone the property to R8, the property located at 11. Oh, whoops, sorry
Oh.
about that.
He's not here.
This is a public hearing item.
As
And,
the only owner nearby, I have nothing to say.
sorry, what, Jessica?
I said as the only owner touching this property, I have nothing else to say.
Would you go to
I
the
will
pulpit,
not make that
please?
legal claim.
This being a public hearing item, we'll open up for public comment. Come forward and now, seeing there are none, we'll close public hearing and wait for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance rezoning the property located at 1155 West, 800 South from A2 to RA1 with a TDR receiving overlay, or TDR overlay, and grant the preliminary plat approval of the two-lot Emerald Corner subdivision.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Jones and a second by Councilman Lundberg.
Lundberg, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Jones, yes.
Great. Item number 8 is consideration of an ordinance adopting amendments to Mapleton City Code Title 17 regarding subdivision requirements. Mr. Conroy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Title 17 is our subdivision ordinance. We review it periodically to make sure we're keeping it updated and consistent with current practice and best management practices and standards. So we're proposing a number of amendments. Most of them are engineering related to ensure that what we're requiring is consistent with our code. We did include a couple of highlights in the staff report. I'll just hit a couple of these. These are more kind of aesthetic, city planning type amendments. So one of the amendments we're proposing is a new road designation, a new cross section for country lanes. These would be for certain areas of the town that are more rural, undeveloped, without curb gutter sidewalk, or new subdivisions like the Nemelka one that was on the east bench where it's determined that it would be more appropriate, more consistent with the general plan to keep those as rural as possible. The second section, make those determinations. Another requirement is to ensure that we can require decorative street lights on Highway 89 and our other commercial areas if and when there's residential development that occur on those. And we've already done that with a couple of subdivisions, but we just wanted to ensure that that was part of the code. And then the last one is to require traffic studies for developments of 30 lots or greater. rather than what the current standard is 100. Typically, what Stephen will tell you is 30 lots typically will not create a significant traffic concern, but we want to have the data, that since that issue always comes up in rezones, or almost always, might as well have the study done and ensure that we're addressing it appropriately for everyone. So those are kind of some highlights. We're happy to go through any detailed comments you got on the ordinance. Jessica sent us just some clerical edits, so we'll make sure we include those. And like I said, happy to answer any questions of the council on this one.
Regarding the country lane designation, it's certainly applicable to the Nomelka subdivision and to the existing subdivision or street like Peterson Lane, for example. How does this apply, if at all, to the many patchwork sections of our community that were developed during the no curb and gutter era?
Yep.
In the 80s, that are patchworked? So can you speak to that?
Yeah, our next step is we've been working on an update to the transportation map to make sure we've got all of those issues identified and designated so that we know up front, okay, this certain subdivision that was developed, 40, 50 years ago is going to have that country lane designation. So we're going to bring that map before the council so that it's so that we've got it designated on an official document. So.
When you say that, Leslie, are you talking about the ones that some of the homes have curb and gutter and some don't going down the road?
Yes, take 1600 South, for example. It's a perfect example across from AJ's house, in front of Chief Jackson's house. That's, I think there's several along Maple Street. That's what I have specifically in my mind.
Yeah, and so the intention for most of those is if you're on a collector road or a major local road, those we will continue to require. It's the minor, the areas that are minor residential roads that either don't have any now or we want to preserve in that way. So like I said, we'll have some more discussion on that in the near future for you.
Yeah. So we did this recently with that, out by Highway 89, Casey, I don't remember his last name, but he came, Casey Beck.
Yeah.
He came and spoke to it, and so that's the intent of this code, right?
Yes.
Or Peterson Lane, or the one on 800 South that we're doing putting the pipe in now and redoing the road. Those areas is the intent of the zone.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like it. I'm a little concerned about, there's a lot omitted from this, and I know in the planning commission minutes, it was addressed that there was a lot of trails, terminology, and specifications that are omitted, and that was initially my concern, and sounds like those are already a requirement in other areas for developers. So the benefits of this is awesome. So I'm not concerned as long as those other requirements are still required in other places.
Yeah, and you'll probably be seeing the subdivision ordinance brought before you more frequently in the future, just to make sure we're not taking 5, 10 plus years to update those to keep with what's important to us.
Yeah. Awesome.
I have a question on one of the sections, 171205J, but it took asphalt. Is it? I thought it might be. It took asphalt from 3.5 inches to 3 inches. I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, we've been doing that for years, that it's now 3. What we used to do is require them to leave the asphalt low and come back and do an overlay. A couple years later, we got rid of that. Gosh, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. It became more of a burden to try to get the developers to come back. So we actually thickened up the asphalts, went from 2.5 with a 1-inch overlay to the developers having to put in 3. And then they pay a slurry fee for us to go back and then resurface and seal that top coat.
Good. I had one other one, this is probably a clerical one, that 660 was spelled out and 600 was written.
Which item are you on?
17.16.035. I think that's A.
Oh. It should be 600. Cross out the 60.
I read it very carefully, the whole thing.
Yeah, good job.
So did I.
Big joke, that just stuck out.
We don't have so much time on here.
This one would be a public hearing item.
Yes.
Yes.
This being a public hearing item, we'll open for public comment now. Seeing there are none, we'll close the public hearing and look for motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendments as presented.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Garrett and a second by Councilmember Jones.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes. Garrett, yes.
Jones, yes.
Lundberg, yes.
Thanks, Sean. We'll go on to item number.
Work, Sean.
Yeah, Sean, that is,
Good
Yeah,
changes.
Stephen, and we've spent some time on this with our department, so.
Very good.
it takes a lot of thought. Nice work, Mr. Lord.
We
Sean.
really did read all of it.
You did?
Yeah.
It's the first time, right, for you?
IT or the paperwork?
All right, we'll go to item number 9, which is it's a discussion item only. So we'll discuss the fraud risk assessment results by Mr. Euler.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This doesn't change, does it?
That's a little practical joke we play on Bryce here. You can use this one.
All right, so as
The laser's on,
required,
Bryce.
as required by the State Auditor's Office, we have performed a fraud risk assessment. This is a self-assessment, and this is for the previous fiscal year. So you can see that we scored a great score, 335 points on the fraud risk assessment out of 395 points. That puts us in the low category, meaning that there is low risk of fraud going undetected within the city. So a couple of the questions that I want to point out. Number one, does the entity have adequate basic separation of duties or mitigating controls as outlined in the attached basic separation of duties questionnaire? That's the biggest factor for mitigating fraud, is having separation of duties, and that comes as we have staff that can do all of the different duties. So we appreciate your support in providing staff to do all the separate duties that need to be separated. And then another item, or question number 6 and question number 8. Once we complete these ones, we'll get in the highest level of scoring that we can reach. So training this year was a little tricky for myself. The programs that I usually get a lot of training at were moved to next year, this fall. So we did get a lot of training. Our staff does get a lot of training. Our accounts payable clerk, our treasurer, and our utility clerk, they receive good training for the programs we use, and accounting training as well. So, and then we are in the process of setting up an internal audit function. That's a little tricky with a organization our size. We don't want to hire a full-time or part-time internal auditor. So we're trying to work with other cities to share resources on that. But we do have an internal audit committee, and that, a formal audit committee, and that has helped us as well. So at this point, leave it up for any discussions. This is just a discussion item, so any thoughts or questions with them?
Well done.
All right, thank you.
Well done to all the staff. It takes everybody to get to that good score.
Yeah, right. Great. Thanks, Bryce. Appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to administrative reports, and we'll start with you, Mr. Conroy.
Just one quickly, we've just kicked off the beginning of our evaluation of the water rates. So we're going to reevaluate our water rates and have some information to bring before the council once we get the kind of the data collected. And We've hired Lewis and Young Consulting. They've done some other consulting work for us. They're an excellent group. So Bryce and I and Stephen will be pretty busy on that, and we will report back to the council as soon as we have some more data and need some more guidance from the council.
When, what are we looking at, like a timeline, end of summer, 5 months, 6 months, what is?
Data collection and their initial, well, it's probably a month or two. So we'll be getting back with you. By the time, you know, to adopt would probably be end of the year would be a realistic expectation.
For adoption, but
if-
we should hear something
But we'll be talking to you in
next
the
month or
next
two.
couple of months. Yeah.
Okay.
It's exciting. That's a big deal. We got to get that figured out ASAP.
Yep, that's all I got.
Great, thanks, Sean. Stephen?
Just road construction, unless, in case you hadn't noticed, that's happening.
It is? You're gonna close some roads soon, or?
Yeah, a couple.
Just don't
We'll
make it
let
a
you
mess
know.
like Maple, please.
No, it's not gonna be as bad. Well, UDOT's gonna come in and do Maple Street. So that's the update on that one. UDOT's coming in August 7th, I think, to start the overlay on Maple Street, so that's gonna be.
August 7th?
They haven't
Quick.
told us. They won't commit to a
Surely
time
it's
frame.
Less than a week.
It shouldn't be too long, but it's, I mean, it's a big road and they're going from the highway to Main Street,
Do
so.
we know who's doing it yet?
Kilgore.
Surely it's only a week job.
How are you spelling week? W-E-E-K or?
It better not be W-A-K-E-K.
No, so what I'm hearing so far is they'll keep traffic on it. So there won't be any full hard closures and and again, what I'm hearing is 2 lanes open all the time.
And you don't know how long? That's what they're not committing to.
Yep. But we've got another meeting tomorrow morning. We have a consultant that's helping us with public messaging on our side of Maple Street. And we hired him specifically because he's the same guy that UDOT hired to do their public involvement. He goes to a meeting every Thursday morning, and then I meet with him on Thursday afternoon. So I'll know more tomorrow.
Great,
hopefully.
excellent.
That's it.
Thanks, Stephen. Sean, congratulations tonight on your, really the only reason we did that was he could wrangle Stephen and keep him in control. He's too much for one person. We got to have 2.
I get to fire one person, that's my.
No, we're excited. This is going to be a big deal. Be able to plug through stuff faster and have some more minds wrapped around some of these issues that are harder to get done. It's a lot of, I mean, as Corey and I sit and meet and discuss these items, it's a lot for one person to try and minutia through. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff. So that's going to be good. Sean's always good to, always has been, to participate and provide good feedback. So it's exciting. Thanks, Sean. Stephen. Reed?
Somebody asked me a question I wasn't able to answer. When we had the water boil order, why weren't the stake and the block captains involved to get the word out? Or is that a fair question?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a question for me, Corey, as far as how does our emergency, how do we use the stakes and the wards to get the word out on something like that? That's probably a question.
We get it to the state presidents, and then if they push it out, they push it out. If not,
So they knew about it?
There is protocol, and there was a committee when I was involved that connected the public safety to the stakes.
yeah,
And we met
that's what I
once a
thought.
month. There is an avenue, but it's all, I've been involved in it for years, and to get that connection and keep it consistent with multiple people coming and going with callings and jobs is a.
I'm not saying turn it over to them to do it, but I just, the way we
They-
did it, plus let the block captains know about it.
yeah, they were notified. I think that it's important for us to realize in the changing community that we have and what's going on, that we're obviously the more people we can get it to, the better. But we need to be cautious about relying on that being a way of communication. And I think you're going to speak to Everbridge, Chief, and we can have you do that. But I think that we got to start to stand on our own feet to communicate with the citizens. And like, Jessica's push on this, these other items, that's exactly what we should be doing. And at the same time, obviously notify, use every way of communicating we possibly can.
Give them a chance.
In the meantime, no question, no question.
Another comment on the solid waste treatment plant. The 2 parcels of ground did close and money was put in the bank. and they're about ready to go out for bonding, so that'll help to be in a good financial position for bonding. Things are progressing.
Did the price go up? Is it still 25 to 30 million, or is it higher? The facility.
It's still hovering around in there. We don't have the final tally for about another month. They're still working on some engineering details, but
Spanish Fork City already started that road that goes off 400 south to the sewer treatment plant, so it's rocking and rolling.
it's on its way.
Good. Thanks, Reed. Jessica.
Only thing I wanted to say tonight was kudos to our increased communication efforts with Madison, the increased graphics and all the information going out. It looks great, it's easy to read, it's informative, especially on social media. So I'm thrilled to see communication increase there. We just need to get more people to follow us so they get it, but it's looking awesome.
Great.
That's it.
Thanks, Jessica.
I'll echo that right off the bat. I've noticed a big quality increase and a consistency, frequency increase, and it's been awesome. I like it.
Where are you noticing that?
Facebook, Instagram, mostly.
On the city
On the cities.
deal?
City
Oh,
channels.
good. Yes, so Madison, if you haven't met her yet, she's sharp, she's great, and it was good timing with the Boyle.
Yeah.
She got thrown into
Yeah.
it.
She got
Next
thrown
time, let's put Madison on TV and not me.
Please, I already voted for that.
We all,
People actually watch.
All in
She's on
favor?
there, not Steve.
I just
But,
had one other request. If Sean, you wouldn't mind, as part of your new promotion maybe, give us an update on the lateral canal trail expansion to the south.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Steve was probably the one to do that.
Yeah, we are right now.
Nice delegation, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, first thing is not do anything and pass it to me. No, I've been point on that from the beginning, so that we got money for design. Right now, we're doing the railroad coordination piece to get a tunnel under the railroad. That is gonna take months. They're notoriously slow. Well, they've got a spur that goes onto Highway 6, which we're gonna use, but we have to go underneath the railroad tracks themselves, which are on the other side of 6.
That was mostly my question was, I know that we've been working on that for a while. Has there been any progress? And it sounds like there's a decision to go under, not over.
Right now, the decision is go under if the railroad will let us. We are pushing hard, because if we have to go over, they're telling us we need a 200-foot long bridge. Single span, which will probably kill the project. It'll be too expensive. So we're trying to convince the railroad that there's technology out there that we can tunnel without moving the tracks at all, without impacting them at all. And it's there, it works. We just have to convince them that, well, we have to convince them that technology outside of the United States of America is also good technology. And it's right now, that's a challenge. So, no, I'm talking about this is the tunnel technology they use everywhere in Asia and most of the time in Europe, but they've done it 9 times here and they're not thrilled with that. So. But that's the progress.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, thanks for handling that news article. Better you than me, so thank you for doing that. Corey was out of town, and we got that handle. He was kind of on the road, so thanks.
I'll just say also a compliment to everybody who was involved in that. I think jumping on that really quick and nipping it in the bud and getting the communication out, that could have gone really bad. And you guys did a really good job jumping on it.
Yeah, for a lot of other cities, it doesn't turn out that good.
Yeah.
It seemed to go fairly smooth.
Yeah, and I would just recommend, and Steve and I have had this conversation, but anytime we detect anything out of any source, we kill it immediately till we run more tests and know for sure it's better safe than sorry than waiting for another test. So anytime anything's detected, we shut it off. We got plenty of other sources to pull from. So we were talking about Madison, so great ad, you guys have already said. She's sharp, does a good job. And there was one other item I needed to bring up. Corey, what is it?
Hey, just in that last city council meeting, you discussed the topic with fiber and
Yes,
wanting to know
fiber.
the status.
Yes, so Matt's put together, he's currently putting together the plan that is going to be more specific, and it's actually what we want, which is, when am I getting internet? That's essentially what everybody wants to know. So he should have that ready by Monday or Tuesday. We'll review that, and then it will just be sent out to you to review and then give us your feedback, and then we can have him present later or something like that, but what we want to do is get it to you so you can provide feedback.
And this plan will show what we'd like to put in a newsletter in August and December and
It's all-
February, all that.
Yeah, from now to the next, couple, 18, 20 months shows the steps and when we advertise for connection, when we do all those things, so all that should come out and you'll be able to review that, provide your feedback. It's a big deal. Okay, 24th, so everything seems to be going good. There was a scare there, we weren't gonna have skydivers for a minute, but we got that figured out. Encourage people to sign up for the events during the week. The historical committee obviously has done an incredible job with what they did, so if you can, come support them Friday night for the ribbon cutting there. And I'd love to see Jim out there dancing in the street, so I'll be there. And let's see, yes, Camille.
Bad news as far as your golf carts for the parade. Hall Creek is not able to let us use them, so.
I got legs.
What?
We've got legs.
Can I ride my horse?
There's a Harley that you can use maybe, right?
Well, we talk Spanish
I have a
Fort.
Harley.
It's okay, I got a Harley to drive, right?
Let me do a little more homework, so that's, yeah, let me see what we can come up with.
I'll do that.
I have an in on golf cart purchases if Parks and Rec wants to buy some. Just
We can always put you all in the back of a dump truck. We have plenty of dump trucks.
Well, while we're talking about Pioneer Days, first shout out to our committee, our Pioneer Days committee. That fabulous job. I'm ultimately impressed with them and their efforts, and it's a big project. And as they're meeting and discussing and getting information collected, it's been very impressive. I'm excited. What questions do you have for me as far as the celebration? You're seeing it on the website. You're seeing the events that were from the 19th to the 24th. Instead of me just kind of going through each day and each top or activity, what questions do you have for me?
I have a question. Rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned you are with volunteer level? 10 being the most concerned.
I'll have a better feel next week. So next week, the registration closes. We're up to about 36 parade entries, it sounds like right now. Once we get a feel for that closing of the registration and see those numbers, then we'll get a better feel of how far off we are with these volunteers. There is the youth council's helping us with the Saturday activities for those games, etc. Excited about that. In years past, the stakes and wards have done those big tents set up. We don't have the manpower for that, so we've rented that out, and that's going to be better. That's, they can come in, set those canopies up and the chairs, etc. So little things like that are resolving herself, but
The daytime games in the Mapleton City Park, I think, is the heaviest volunteer need, is it not?
Probably. If the youth council,
Youth
doing it,
council.
that's a great thing for them to participate in.
Yeah.
And one of the
Logan,
things.
pray the parade, volunteers, again, depending on how many floats and participants. It's coming. Next week's the week we'll kind of get a better feel for that. We've been sending out information to the stakes, some flyers. I don't know if you've seen those going through your wards of kind of emphasizing to volunteer and also emphasizing to sign up for these different type of events. But
One thing I'll say is Mike Nelson, we asked him to do this, and he accepted and ran with it, and I think he's done a great job. This is the first time, basically, if you see him, pat him on the shoulder, tell him thanks, because he didn't have to accept that. And I had which was great for me to see, I had one of my neighbors volunteered to help, and they texted me this morning and said, hey, you've been a sponsor or something in the past, and kind of we expect you to sponsor again or whatever, and it wasn't Camille coming after us. So I was like, this is great. We got volunteers going after this stuff, and anyway, from talking to Mike and working with him and then seeing some of the volunteers out doing the stuff, it's from my perspective, now it hasn't happened yet, right? So I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but what I've seen, they've done a great job.
Well, I would just ask, keep us informed if there's if there's some push that you need us to do as far as gathering volunteers, please let us know. We can push
Yeah.
it.
And like I said, next week is really, we'll have that filled. I know a couple staff's gonna be addressing a few things. Maybe we just talk Pioneers a little bit. There is gonna be a change, and I've been talking with the mayor about this last couple weeks, at Iyer Allen that evening as far as, traffic flow and parking, et cetera. And Chief, maybe just hit on that. I know that was one you wanted to.
Those will make one of them off my list for when I get up here, but I had Camille pull up Google Earth. 1600 South, 1300 West is the field that Mike Miner uses. It's on the south side of the road. We've secured that from Mike to use this year as a public parking area. If you go east on that road to the corner of 8th West, it's a third of a mile. It's 5 blocks. And that's going to be, we're going to block that, sorry, not going to block, we're going to cut that road in half that night and construct a walkway from that parking lot up to 8th West and into the park. So that road will be one-way traffic, eastbound only until the fireworks were over, and then when the fireworks are over, we'll flip it to westbound only, and that walkway will stay open all night. We've divided it with barricades and rope in years past. The only challenge we have is we're lucky we have some really great people that live on that road that understand what's going on, and we do give them access to move the ropes to get cars in and out of their place. But we feel like we need to provide some public parking, and that's the closest, biggest field. In that field, we've secured 3 security guards to monitor the field and help people park, and we've also got 3 tower lights that will go in there and light the field. We also anticipate parking along the road just west of me and north into those subdivisions, probably closer over by you, Jessica. So we will have crosswalks at those cross streets. So 1030 West, just west there, we'll have an officer there with a crosswalk where people can cross the road and he can stop traffic. The fire department will be heavily involved that night. They're gonna have their different trucks and brush trucks as they do every year in different areas down in that. And we'll also have the CERT team down in there helping with lost kids, because that's a biggie too.
Chief addressed the closing of our Iyer Allen parking lot, and the closing of 800 West. And to note on that, this parking, this field parking, it will be free. We tried in years past, there was, the landowner, I think, was charging like $8 or $10, and it just didn't happen. They
When you look at the map from the air like this, where do you put people? That's the big challenge. And I mean, we're talking several thousand people. The parking lot's full. I mean, the food trucks take up a pretty good portion of the parking lot. And by the way, I'll get to this in my reports, but we have a gym down there with those pickleball courts. And so to get cars in and out of there with that many people using those is troublesome too. So more, and you may be asking further into the parking lot why it needs to be closed. Well, the band requires a certain amount of space for their stuff. We also, I think it's a great idea, they've secured some picnic tables with some umbrellas to let people eat out in there.
Well, we changed out on that. We were considering it, but the cost is probably too much this year.
So that is more of a pedestrian.
There'll be about 8 to 10 food trucks.
And we'll put our vehicles in there. Guys need to get in and out of there. Fire trucks will be in there, ambulance or.
How widespread do you, I guess, advertise or notice that there will be this public parking? What does that piece look like?
That's what I wanted to get with you guys tonight, to make sure you guys were all on board with that, and then that's what we need to start pushing out right now.
The game plan was the first of next week that we would really start.
Okay, so you'll really push it out there, okay.
So, I mean, even somebody that lives on the east side of town, it's a nice shot right down Maple Street and over the highway and up into that parking lot if they need to.
The big difference is, in years past, we had the ability that they could park in the Iyer Allen parking lot. That will not happen. 800 West will be closed down. From 600 South to approximately kind of where that street's at, where you're, Monte Vista Street.
There'll be a lot of foot traffic in there.
The concern in years past, we just feel like we've been fortunate that we have not had injuries, someone getting hit by cars, all these cars in that parking lot. It's a tight spot, so we feel this is gonna open it and help that.
Well, you guys have done a great job over the years, you know, the one way in and then you flip it and the one way out. I mean, there's been a few years for traffic jams, and then it's, you know, you've done a great job in the last number of years to keep that one way.
One other thing
Thank you, Leslie.
One other thing we will be different too. We will not have a drop-off zone, and we're worried about that. We know we're going to frustrate some people because they're used to that. But it was a painful process there too. They pull in, they want to get out of their car. We don't see them for a half hour. We got to go find them, come get your car. You got to move. As well as the ping pong ball registration. In years past, we've let them register up to about 10 minutes before. It closes at 2 on Saturday, 1 o'clock on Saturday there at the main city park. And we're going to try to promote it out there as much as we can, but we know we're going to have probably a few frustrated people, but we just can't keep up with what we were
Well, it's
doing in
growing
the
so
past.
fast. I'm curious, this is a personal question. My parents live right on the corner of 8th and 2000 South. At what point do you, like, you know, we have people coming to our house, so what's the timeline on what time should we let people know, hey, you can get in until this time?
So people that live in there, we'll have officers down there that'll help people
Or
get in
guests?
and out of there.
Okay.
As well as you'll have that south end, you could
Oh,
direct
come up
them
from
through
the
those
south.
other south area to.
Certainly don't want to restrict anybody that lives in that area, so I'll wait till my turn.
Great.
One thing real quick, I can see automatically there's gonna be a big question for the people that are parking in that field. Why can't I just walk straight to the field through the south end of those? And have you talked?
There's fences and fields there, I mean.
Right, but.
Between the houses?
So to answer your question, Theron,
Yeah.
we have not talked to them. We've discussed it, and I know the people that live the house next to that field have animals back there. We've even talked about maybe approaching them and seeing if we can section off their animals that night.
Yeah.
There's a lot of alfalfa being grown back there.
I know it's problematic, but you're gonna get that a lot, just from looking at the.
Quite frankly, I think you're still gonna see people run through it.
Yeah. I think for the most part, when you have traffic flow of people, pedestrian traffic coming down to the street, most people follow that flow, but
Right.
you'll get some people run.
Yeah, some people park in the back and they'll say, well, why can't I just go across this field? It's right there.
Yeah.
So-
The other one we're gonna see is right next to the home, next to the pickleball courts where that new vinyl fence is.
They're gonna
We
wanna
gotta
cut
keep
through
people
there.
out of his backyard too,
Can you
so.
just put some like A-frame signs back in there that directs them to the pedestrian walkway, and at least
Yeah.
we can, that's all we can control, I
That's our
think.
plan.
Now we're gonna rely on our security guards and some staff to help us there too.
With Pioneer Days, Chief, anything else on your side with Pioneer Days?
Just real quick, Friday night, we do have some road closures too for the street dance. The UDOT permits are approved, but street dance from Maple to 4 South, it's closed. The reason 4 South is that's the detour road. But like I say, people that live in that area, we can help somebody get down in there if we need to. But for that whole historical,
Maple to 4th East.
no, Main Street to 4 South.
Oh, Main Street, okay.
Sorry about that. But people that live there, we can help them get in and out if we need to, but.
So our website's showing the activities, social media, we're gonna even bump that up even more. You're gonna see a lot more coming, just with some of the questions you asked now as far as where to park, that kind of stuff. Logan, anything else on Pioneer Days from your side?
It's starting to pick up steam, so we just hope and ask everybody to continue to tell their neighbors and friends.
I mentioned something to Corey earlier, we were talking about this, and on the Saturday night, when we have the stage up there and we kind of recognize sponsors and do whatever we do up there, if whoever wins these games that you've set up during the week, that we recognize them somehow and maybe do a presentation then?
That was part of the plan.
Okay, I think that's how we get the steam out there for next year.
Individual champions will be
Okay,
presented, and they'll actually find them on stage.
that's
be
where we'll
great,
give
'cause
them their
we'll be there
$10,000 each, and we'll do it on the stage. See, you better sign up.
Hey, I've got a question about just the ongoing, more of it serves two purposes, not just the record of the event, but also building a library of stock images for future promotion for the 24th celebration. Is there somebody that's been lined up for pictures, or to be taking pictures all week? Oh, really? Great, all week, at all of the different things, great.
And I thought maybe you two had talked a little bit, I'd seen that email.
If you did, I didn't see it.
If you have others that are willing to help, it sounded like there may be a 1 year and done.
Yeah.
So we could use more help with that, and
I'll
so,
talk to Camille
yeah.
offline, okay, great.
Have you thought about doing a picture competition on the day and see? And
The events.
so they submit their pictures they've taken? That's awesome. I had a question, Logan. Are we doing a grand opening on the pickleball courts that day? Ribbon cutting? Okay.
All right, Leslie.
think so. No, I
Kyle?
don't think so.
Drum?
I think.
I'll say one more time, good job on 24th of July. It's, no doubt it's a bigger deal this year. Corey and Logan, all you guys, Chief, worked together to do this. Good job. And the pickleball courts, that look amazing. I get so many
Should we
comments.
tell them what happened today, Chief? Okay. Yeah, you gotta hear this.
Camille, did you have anything?
I'm
Corey?
done too. Thank you.
Holy cow. Bryce? Logan?
So, a couple things.
Oh. Chief, I just know you got a little list, so I'm just keeping you for the grand finale.
Logan and Chief are the new Corey.
Yeah. So the first one was the pickleball courts, just on what, wanted to bring to you guys on what you wanted. Steve and I had talked about maybe doing a dual, do a soft opening before our tournament, and then do the grand opening ribbon cutting the night of. We're open to whatever. We also threw out the idea of maybe doing like a first serve or the first goal kick or, you know, something that way. So really, we're open to anything. I know before Corey had expressed that maybe just doing something the night of the tournament, just because of the hustle and bustle of the 24th. Maybe that's not the right time for the actual ribbon cutting and celebrating, rather than celebrating the courts, you know, themselves. That's more for our event. So is it better to just do it that night so we can specifically celebrate the pickleball courts rather than Pioneer Day? So
I have two things I've thought of with that. One is if you do it the night of, I've seen how busy you guys are with trying to get the stuff set up. And if we're sitting there, like, trying to wait for people to come, and everybody's going 100 miles an hour, and you've been sweating to death to try and take pictures and do this cool thing that our community's done, it'll be a mess.
yeah.
That's number one. Number two, and then we're locking them up because we don't want them ruined with food and tables and chairs and everything else drugged through there.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is I think it would be really cool to do the ribbon cutting, and I don't know what time Monday your tournament starts. Is it all-
Tuesday around 5 to 6 o'clock,
So
depending on
right
numbers.
before we start our first citywide tournament, you do like a cool ribbon cutting. It gives staff a chance to breathe for a minute, come, and let's have a good time with it. We just spent almost $2 million over there. Let's
I like that too.
Let's make
Amen.
it cool and where
Amen.
people aren't stressed and try and figure it out and take some cool pictures and celebrate.
That's what I was gonna suggest too.
Okay,
And you bring soft serve ice cream and we'll all have fun, Logan.
sure, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great. So I'll work with Madison to get more details, and we'll start pushing that out to advertise it, and then we'll send it obviously to all the participants, and
What better
So that'll happen
chance-
right before the tournament on Tuesday.
on Tuesday, the 20th.
4:30.
What better chance do we have to do that and then say, play ball, you know,
Yep.
and get after it?
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. One thing you said briefly about like tables and chairs and stuff, so we're gonna have one of the security officers that we hired will be monitoring, going through that, trying to keep chairs, food, the best that we can. We're also gonna put a bunch of signs up. We wanna encourage people to use them, to sit, just because it is space for them to sit.
Well, we talked that a little bit. We might,
Talked to Corey about that earlier and I just don't,
I don't like it either.
with the amount of money we just spent and them being brand new, we've never used that space before because it's been weeds, so no one's set up there. We put an ambulance there, we put a little food stuff there before, but we're blocking off the parking lot for all that stuff. I say we keep them closed until, I mean, it gets dark and you just don't,
Yeah.
people just don't generally care.
Yeah.
You know, and I think.
And we
wanna
have the
keep 'em nice for a
capability,
while.
there's, the fences can close, or the gates can close to
Lock 'em up.
lock them up,
Yep.
so.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yep, we'll plan on that then. So I'll get some more details out, on that. We obviously want each of you to be there and celebrate it, so. The next one was so kind of a two-part. Stephen and I have also been talking on maybe some water conservation stuff. We've thrown out the idea of maybe doing like a water conservation garden, zero-scape demonstration garden on the side of here. Just more of a educational for our residents for, you know, these are the types of plants that use less water, drought tolerant. Not necessarily we're requiring them to do that, but encouraging that these are things that we can use. And then be able to maybe use some of this property that we're not utilizing currently. So just kind of a filler. We just barely have been thinking about it with just the current state of the water and.
I think that's a great idea. And Localscapes, I don't know if you're familiar with Localscapes. It's a phenomenal resource. So I'm sharing it with my contacts, but if the city wanted to also not adopt, but, you know, even amplify some of that message too, I think it makes doing what you're suggesting very easy and very tangible for just average people.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely note that, so.
The question, there's a,
Caravan City is really the forefront of local scapes, and so if you're looking to roll out some programs that might get the word out there,
great idea.
Caravan City has done a phenomenal job is making sure that the requirements are out there, things to get people to bike and get in, and it's been very successful.
It's a great suggestion.
Thanks, MJ.
Thank you. And then with that, tying it in, we talked this morning as staff, eventually this road needs to be redone, as well as the fiber being brought here to the building. The current mow strips that we have in there just don't serve a purpose. They use a lot of water. So we'd like to maybe propose as we go to that project, looking at making those a little bit bigger so we can xeriscape, add some trees, make it aesthetically look a little bit better, and then also use less.
Remove the grass, so there'd be no grass there.
Yeah, no grass, it'd just be rock and shrubs and trees and things like that. So just a thought, like I said, I know for me, I'm trying to identify places that we can aesthetically make it a little bit better and then also help with water conservation.
From a just a marketing standpoint, I think xeriscape has such a negative connotation, like rocks and cactus. Maybe we could use, since we're in the era of changing language, just use local scape.
Yeah.
Maybe we could adopt that instead of xeriscape.
Xeriscape, yeah.
Just call it local scape.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Okay.
People tend to shut down when you talk xeriscape because they don't want rocks
No,
and cactus.
I would agree with, I can understand that, so.
Great.
Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Logan. Appreciate it. All right, Chief, it's all you.
Sorry, I know you want to get going, but I got a few things to go over with you here. First off, I want you to hear what really happened at Allen this morning, because these guys will tell you a different story, but I think we went down there to look at the flow coming out of the parking lot, and if we had enough room to get people through there. And these guys went and sat in the shade, so I had to go out and do the measurements myself.
Oh, boy.
It took a while.
That's why you're sunburned.
Hot, but anyway, when I got done, I went over to get under the shade with them, and Corey pushed me into the newly poured concrete. And my boot went in it. So.
Yeah, that's not what I heard.
We got 25 acres over there. He steps in a little bit of concrete. It's like
Chief, you
that.
decided to step in the wet concrete.
Then I called it cement, and he got mad at me, so it was just a day.
I'm gonna be bringing the change order for us to put that concrete back in next time.
I stepped in the mud down there, but Big Time fixed it for us, so he got it done quick. So he got it done quick. Over the weekend, the fireworks we were nervous about, but it went really well. And so the residents watching right now, way to go. That was awesome. We had 8 or 9 calls. They were all very minor. When I say calls, I'm talking about people calling in and saying, hey, I'm concerned about fireworks in this area. The officers responded. Didn't have to issue any citations. People were good. The one fire they had over the weekend wasn't related to fireworks. It was electrical fire in a house, but they got down there and knocked that out too. So pretty happy overall with something we were a little bit nervous about over the weekend. So that went really well. Follow up on the Everbridge email that you guys got and the statistics. A little bit confused about this. Jessica gave me a list, and I'm glad you did, by the way, of half a dozen people that said they didn't get the message. I logged into the system, and they're in there. They're in the system. So I sent a test message, and they got it. They got the test. So why they didn't get the original one, I just don't have an answer for. So Everbridge is something we'll monitor a little bit closer. And in order to monitor it closer, we probably ought to use it just a little bit more. So if you have something, I don't want to overuse it, don't get me wrong. But if we have something we want to push out, and maybe some of this Pioneer Day stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great use. If we're gonna have a citywide road closure, I think this is a great example to say, notice these roads will be closed or limited access between XX. I think the Maple one with UDOT,
Great idea.
To add to
that
that,
affects everybody.
we want to look into as well, letting people opt into those type of notifications. So that's something that we'll look at too. So anyway.
But here's a question. I mean, by doing that, and I agree, Jessica, those are great ways to test it out. But should there not be some kind of a response from that receiver so that you can monitor who's getting them and
So
who's
the
not?
system is set up to do that, but,
You text yes back.
but I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, so that's part of the
Asks
messaging,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna be honest, and I'm as guilty as the next guy. I don't always do that.
I don't
I
either.
try to now because I'm looking at it, but
And we have other opportunities now too with the new the website, theoretically, the structure allows people, there's an add-in component there where people can opt into different kinds of communications also. So there might be an opportunity to really dig into that.
I'm glad Madison's
more.
on board. I think she can help us with that.
Yes.
Something crazy, the text I get, it's this number 88911. Well, that's the same one, so if I have a business in Payson and Spanish Fork and all these other cities, and all of my notifications come on this, so these are all mixed with Payson City, and so I'm reading through here, and since January 1, I've received 16 of these, and like 12 of them are from Payson City alone, and it's like there's a pressurized irrigation open house, there's a mayor writes letter regarding drought conditions, so like there's all these things, and I don't think they use it too much. It's super, like for me, it's easy because I can read it real quick and I can either get on if I want it or leave it if I don't. And so I think if we could use it, like if you used it once a month even, I don't think that's too much. Now, obviously we don't want to send ridiculous information, but if there's something that's vital and maybe, we're doing enough road construction and road closures, we could do it for that and, have enough information. I know we're worried about using it too much because then people disregard it. But for me, I get them from these other cities on the same Springville utility shut off, It's a courtesy notification.
Mention too, in times past when we've used it a little bit too frequently, I'll receive calls where they're saying, hey, this was supposed to be for an emergency only. You just took me out of a business meeting. I'm frustrated. It's minimal. I probably get a handful of those, but
But I suspect for every one of those, there's probably 100 people that
That's
say,
right.
oh, good, I
I think 5 years ago it would have been a lot worse, but now I think people are used to that.
They're used to that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think everybody's more open to the idea of getting.
Yeah.
I'm getting Subway promotions at my text message, so.
Yeah, and I got a new warranty on my car.
So, yeah, agreed. Use it more, Chief.
Yeah. Reed, I'm glad you brought up the stakes. They were on that notification, and that system sometimes works and sometimes doesn't down through the stakes. One thing, I'm preaching to the choir, but we need to not make sure Facebook is the only thing we're using. I got a couple just really minor emails from citizens saying, how do you expect me to follow Facebook when I don't use it? So it's a great tool. We continue to use it, absolutely, because it reaches a lot, but we got to go a little bit deeper. So we'll keep working on that. Last thing for you, since we already did Pioneer Day, we're struggling to get trucks. The two trucks we were going to replace at the first of the fiscal year are a year out. We can't get silver Fords. So I just want to get some feedback from you guys. I personally like the fleet matching, all being silver and all being the same design and having the same logos on the side. So we have a couple options. The only trucks we have an option of getting right now, which, by the way, I want to tell you what they're for. One's for the fire department, and then two are police replacement vehicles, are white Chevy trucks. And here's what I propose. I currently drive an unmarked silver truck, and Phil Bringhurst drives an unmarked silver truck. I know my guys are going to hate me for this, but I would propose we mark those trucks and make them patrol trucks and put them into the fleet. They're both relatively new. Mine's 3 years old and Phil's is 1 year. And then use the white Chevs as our unmarked trucks. So we would have two Chevys in the fleet, but they wouldn't be marked. So the marked vehicles would stay the way they are right now. So that's what I would propose.
When the Fords break down, we have a way to tow them out. That's good.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, so you'll take one for the team and drive a Chevy so that you can have a brand new truck.
This has been a headache all day just because
go for it.
It looks awful to say,
You're
we're
gonna
getting
get
new
it
trucks.
from
I'll take one.
all
But
angles, yep.
I 100% want to tell you, I expected to, when I was done with this job, be in the truck I'm in now. So, but that seems to make the most fiscal sense and get us the trucks the way
Well, then we'll get you a new truck and you can't leave.
yeah.
I don't have any issue with your
4 more
proposal.
years, doesn't he?
The other option would be to get the two white ones, mark it up, and then we have two that stand out, but we would continue to go with that design moving forward. I gotta be honest, I got enough going on. I really don't want to deal with a new design right now, and I like what we have. So, you guys good?
Yes.
Good, because in the works. Thank you.
Chief, thanks.
Thank you.
If we're a year out, are you going to keep it on order for next July?
Might as well.
Hey, another thing, sorry, to add to that, the Chevs, I'm going to back up what you've been saying, come with more than the Fords did, and they're actually the same price.
There we go.
Because it's actually saved us a little money.
Nice. All right. We'll look for a motion to close.
I'll make a motion to close.
Second it.
Motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilman Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Oh, yeah, no meeting next, in 2 weeks.
I made a billion t-shirts for like staff and council that are Mapleton ones. They go, I got small to 3X, because some of us
If you
like
made a
some round.
billion, I'll take several.
They're just for staff, because I've never been given, see, it's not Camille's fault, let me disclaimer. Other than the police one, I never have been given a Mapleton shirt. So I ordered a bunch on my own. It's not Camille's, okay, so I like this one better, so it has the little pocket. Oh, turn off. Stop. I turned off mine. And there's that one. There's more of that one, because the colors show it better. So, just.